Hello and welcome to the Resilience Reef for managing chronic health conditions. Today I have a special guest all the way from Canada who is going to talk to us about her experience of chronic health condition. She had pain management issues, so we're going to be talking about chronic pain today. In terms of we're going to be sharing Laura's story, but also sharing some of the important strategies that she used to help gain relief and to have some sense of hope and optimism for the future, to be able to manage it better and not live in the state she was living in when it was at its worst. So hello, Laura. How are you? How are you doing?
Hi, Karen. I'm doing well. How are you? Trying to enjoy some sunshine.
Some sunshine in beautiful Canada. Oh, I love Canada. I really do. But of course, your accent isn't Canadian as such. So talk us through that.
It's not. Yeah, I am half from Spain and half French too. I was born in Spain, in Madrid. And I lived there for 23 years until I moved to Canada. And it's been already almost 11 years. So I would say this is my home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You've never had any regrets of going back to Spain?
Not really. I miss certain things. I miss, the weather, the people, my friends, family. I do miss a lot of things that are dear to me, but in terms of, lifestyle, I do love it here. So yeah, it's been a long time already. No regrets.
Quite a different culture, isn't it?
It is very different.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And your accent is gorgeous, by the way.
Oh,
I really do love accents. So yes, today we're going to be sharing some of your story, Laura, about your chronic pain management, which you did marvelously well. We've talked backstage about your recovery and things from it, and what you've done since then because of it. So yeah, you can see on the screen, Laura is a yoga therapist as well. So from that learning and the strategies that we build as people who are dealing with chronic health matters, we can use those beautiful skills and go off and help other people to manage their situation too. So today we're going to share a bit of a diagram, actually, not a bit of one, it is a diagram. And it's going to give some ideas. So let's just see how this would work. I'll put that on screen and then we can you see that, Laura?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So this is when we're working with chronic health conditions as professionals, we tend to look at the holistic. We tend to look at not just the pain, the physical pain, but we're also interested in looking at the holistic, what's going on for the person socially, psychologically, mentally, etc. And the nice thing about these kind of pictorial images is that we can get a broader idea, a bigger picture of what's going on, can't we? And we can figure out where all these kind of little arrows are going to the circles. We can kind of figure out how do we take that arrow and eliminate it from the circle, so that we're basically breaking some of these links that enable us to be more resilient in managing our chronic health conditions. Because if we keep going around this cycle, like this young fellow in the middle, he starts off quite a bit maybe shocked, surprised that he's got some persistent pain. Maybe he's had some injury or illness. And then he's getting, as you go around the cycle, you can see the red one at the bottom. He's getting now he's losing sleep and he's getting pretty annoyed and frustrated and angry, and his wit's end, and he really doesn't know what to do. And then as we're moving forward, getting pretty depressed, hopeless, helpless, finding it very difficult to manage. And that's, we don't really want people to be in that stage, because that's pretty bad. And if people keep then continuing to feel that way, it can lead to all sorts of suicidal ideation. And a lot of people do take their own lives because it is so not worth living with chronic and tragic pain. So we're going to talk through this diagram, and hopefully, Laura, you'll be able to kind of fit in bits and pieces from your experience, because I'll just let you introduce it first off before we go into this, so that people have got a little bit of a backstory into what your story was. So let's just put us back on screen. Tell us a little bit about your story and your experience and where it all started with your pain.
First off, I love that diagram because I could relate to those states where the guy was going through. So my chronic pain started 5 or 6 years ago. Started in the upper back, and it got very, very bad to a point where I was not able to sleep on my back at all. I could not lie down on anything, not a bed, not anything. And it was pretty bad because, it was not, and again, it's the spiral where we get into that, where, you feel the pain, and then there's a lot of emotions going on, shame, embarrassment, guilt. Why am I having this pain? What did I do to create the pain? And the fact that I was not getting enough sleep, then it impacted my social life as well. I was not going out as much as I used to. So it was mainly upper back pain. And to be honest, like, I went to the doctor, I had a lot of tests done, and they could not really find out what the cause of the pain was, which was, on one side, it was a positive thing because it didn't have any inflammatory component or any structural physical health component to it. But then on the other hand, I could not really know where the pain was coming from, which was very frustrating as well.
Absolutely. Let's just have a look at the diagram then and see how so you started off with some unknown pain. You didn't know where it had come from. You didn't seem to have any inflammatory perspective to it, but you just knew it was causing daily functioning problems, like you couldn't lay on your back, and it was affecting your social life and your emotional life. So you probably kind of were less active, I suppose, in terms of not going out as much and not, wanting to.
But the funny thing is, at that time, that was 2016, that's when I was taking my first yoga teacher training. So I was being active in the sense of, physical postures, breathing exercises, meditation, but I was not as active in terms of, going out, doing outdoor activities, doing sports. I've always been like a pretty active person, and I love hiking, for example. And I was not doing that for, a long time, even over 2 years, because it would stop me from, things that I had always done, right? Even my yoga physical practice was impacted by the pain. So I was not even able to do any of those movements anymore. I totally can see the whole, you kind of enter and you go through phases. Like, I went through different of those phases. Some of them were more intense than others. I didn't, let's say, like, weight, in terms of weight, I didn't have any weight loss or gain. So, I would say it's a very personal process, but for sure. We all go through different stages, of course.
And I think with the weight as well, this isn't a linear process. This can go across and in and out, and you go backwards and you go forwards, because this is not necessarily that you go through all these things, and especially with the weight gain or weight loss, because that links in not just with side effects of medication, which you may be on, because and some of the drugs that people have to take or need to take are pretty serious, heavy duty stuff, so they can cause all serious kind of side effects. But if you think about it, if you're being less active and you're putting a to-do list of things that you can't and won't engage in anymore because you're not motivated, and it's too debilitating to be active, say doing the shopping and doing the the cooking, you're more likely to chuck stuff. And especially if you're tired because you've got insomnia, you're not sleeping because you're waking up in the night, the chances are you are going to be chucking stuff in a microwave, getting Uber Eats to come and deliver. I don't know if you have Uber Eats in Canada, but Uber Eats deliver anything you want from anywhere, and you pretend
Uber Eats. Same.
You're pretending to get Uber Eats, bring you whatever you need, and it'll typically be processed, high junk, which you just can chuck in the oven or chuck in a microwave. And that obviously high processed stuff is going to increase your weight gain. And if you're not exercising, you're not going to do anything with the calories, are you?
But then it's so normal, just because, it's a coping mechanism. So we all use whatever we have access to cope with the pain, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the first thing you search for when you're not feeling well is the food that makes you feel good. And that's not always, it feels good emotionally and psychologically, but physically not necessarily help, especially if your pain is inflammatory pain, right?
Yeah.
Because you might be eating a lot of stuff that's increasing that inflammatory response, which is actually just going to make you feel a whole lot worse afterwards. Make you feel good for a little while, but then you
It's
feel
always a
absolutely
temporary relief for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and certainly when you're not feeling good about yourself, that's when things start to feel negative. What kind of things did you experience in terms of, because you were a pretty resilient person prior to this. I mean, you moved from Spain to Canada, so you had a lot of resilience type behaviors and skills and qualities within your tools, within your skill set to manage this. Did you ever sense that your psychology was affected? Did you experience any depressed mood or anything like that?
Absolutely. And I even believe that just because of the pain, I did a lot of inner work, trying to find out where the pain was coming from. And that sort of revealed a lot of, maybe emotional pain that I was not listening to so far until that time. And a lot of things, a lot of emotions started to flow out and started to call for my attention. So yes, for sure, I went through a depressed stage for sure. I was feeling hopeless. I could not find the reason why I was feeling that pain. And yes, there was some of the things that I was doing that provided relief, which is very holistic. I would say there is not, I like to think it as a circle, as a diagram, because there is not always this one thing that is being helpful, but there is many things that I did at that time that did help to relieve the pain.
That's great. Shall we talk about those, Laura? Shall we talk about some of the things that?
Yes, for sure.
Because we all go on our journeys of self-discovery, don't we? When we've got chronic things going on and we're not really getting answers from professionals, or we don't want to rely on medications because we know there's side effects and we can get addicted, especially to pain medication, and we don't want to do that. So talk us through some of the things that you've tried or kind of discovered that helped you.
So I would probably describe them under two pillars. So one would be self-care, which is huge, and it could be different from anyone, and the other one is self-knowledge. So I would start with the self-care. I started to do a lot of research on, I knew that it was not an inflammatory cause that created my pain, but I was doing a lot of research on which foods would be a trigger. And I was doing a lot of, connecting to my body as well and trying to see what would trigger more pain or what would lessen the pain. For me, for sure, was, reducing inflammatory foods like, alcohol. I have never been like a very, I've never drank a lot, but I would have like a glass of wine here and then that would be a trigger for me. Sugar was a trigger for sure. So I would just try to just take those out of my diet. I did a lot of physical self-care, and that involved relaxation techniques for me were very helpful. I was lucky enough that I was taking the teacher training at that time. So just because I was not able to move and do the asanas that you're supposed to do and learn from when you're taking the teacher training, because we know that yoga is not just a physical component, but there is a lot that you need to learn about anatomy and the physical structure. So just because I was not able to do that, I was able to do more, to get engaged more into the meditative relaxation techniques that I was able to really embody. The breathing techniques helped me a lot, especially working with long exhales. And the reason why is just because when you actually lengthen the exhale, the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated, which is, that part of the nervous system that allows you to get into that rest and digest mode, to really relax. Apyanga, which is an Ayurveda concept. So in yoga, we work, we complement our wisdom with Ayurveda, which is the Eastern. You might know it because you're in Australia, so you might hear it all the time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So self-massage, and even, that actually boosted my relationship with my partner, because he was applying oil on my back every night. And it was, it sort of helped us as a couple as well to get closer and more intimate, just because touch is such an important component as well that we often disregard, but it is so crucial. That in terms of the self-care aspect. And then for the self-knowledge, I would say that was the deepest strategy that I went on. Why? Because it's always easier to rely on some medication, which I did, and I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm just saying that it's always easier to rely on, easy fixes rather than maybe listening to the body and see what it's really asking you to do and what to pay attention to. So that's when, I did deep emotional work. I tried to discover maybe those repressed emotions and patterns that I was engaging into that were not as healthy as I thought. And also looking into the relationship, not only with myself, but also the relationships in my life. And, I did favor those relationships that were caring, nurturing, just because when we think of pain, it's almost like a little child that is crying and that needs attention. So sometimes, we would not listen to it. But then if you bring in some caring and, affection to it, then the child, all of a sudden, he settles down and he feels understood. So to me, that was the big aha moment when I started to befriend my pain. And even I gave it a name. Just for me, it was an image of a little kid that was, asking for attention and just carrying compassion and some listening ear. That was a big discovery for me. So I'm talking a lot about a lot of different things, but I would say, under those self-care and the self-knowledge pillar, there is a lot of things that you can do to manage the pain.
So you did well. I mean, you did a lot of things and brave,
under the sun.
And I think it's hard. It is hard. You touched on it, because I think it's very hard in the beginning when you have something so serious that it just takes over your life, that you don't feel you've got room for anything else, and it's a real struggle to go and search for these strategies. So we do tend to, first port of call does tend to be GP, a doctor who can prescribe something fast and quick. We're all in the game these days of, let's plug it in and play it. We don't want to kind of wait for results. We don't want to spend loads of time on this. Let's just give me a fast thing that's going to solve the problem.
Which makes sense though, because it's not easy to live with pain. So I totally relate to that need of, please help me, give me something that is going to provide a quick relief, right? But it's so common that there's something lurking in the background, something that we need to deal with in order for this to happen, especially when there was no chronic inflammatory response there that could tell you it's a certain thing. That kind of leads you to think, well, is it something else? What is it? What's going on? So you did a lot of good things that helped you along that way. What happened with your pain? Talk us through. Did you manage to completely eliminate, or is it still? I did. It did kind of radiate to the upper, the cervical spine. So right now I do live with chronic neck pain and tension. I no longer have the upper back pain, which, I'm thinking that all these strategies that I used did help eliminating the pain. I do feel sometimes according to what I do feel that the pain comes back, but I'm totally able to see, oh, here's the pain again. So what did I do? Was it something that I ate? Was it a movement that I did? Was it something that I'm, some emotional thing that I need to work on. And then nowadays I do have chronic neck pain. But my view on the pain has totally switched to, again, trying to see pain as a way that the body is trying to communicate with me. So I see pain as a sign, just because the body doesn't have it does have a language, but it doesn't use words. It uses, sensations. Pain in that case is like almost an alarm that, hey, just talking to the conscious mind, like, hey, there's something that you need to pay attention to. So to me, I would say the process has been learning how to understand and befriend the pain.
Absolutely. And it's great that all the strategies that you have learned will help you in the future, transforming your future pains and dealing with it and accepting it and forgiving it and having that good conversation, trying to be compassionate and sensitive to it rather than, and I think that makes it a lot better. I think it makes it a lot easier to deal with rather than battling it and fighting it and go away, I don't want you anymore.
Exactly.
Because that just makes it want to come back and knock on your door even more, right?
And I would say the positive takeaway that we can all have from this is that over time, at least for me, I learned what to do right away to manage and relieve the pain. So right now, whenever, my neck is bothering me, I know what to do. I would do, a body scan or relaxation technique. If it's too bad, sometimes I do rely on pain medication when it's very, very bad and overwhelming. But otherwise, now I know what I need to do. So that's the difference in regards to the pain over, the 5 years ago when I started having the pain, and I had no clue on what I had to do.
So it's getting that quick relief, let's just put this back on because I think this is good, is to in terms of getting rather than getting frustrated and depressed and negative and all the nasty things that we do when we're not coping very well, we tend to then nip it in the bud quite early up here. We nip it in the bud very early on because we know we have the strategies. We now know what it is and we know how to manage it so quickly. As soon as we start to sense there's a response where it's flaring up, we can say, right, stop things, let's be mindful, let's kind of give it its attention that it needs, and let's just take a break. Let's do something to give it some love and care and attention, and then the chain of events will not run. It helps it to stop it in its tracks, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Totally. I believe that, one of the ways how, and I often talk to, not only my students who suffer from chronic pain, but, also friends and family members. I also like to tell them that, I know that it's frustrating, but try to set that frustration aside and try to ask the pain, what do you want from me? And maybe that's going to give an answer. That's going to give you an answer. And sometimes, some people look at me like that sounds very strange as a strategy. But then, the next day they come to me and they say, well, Laura, you know what? I had a really good sleep. Why? Because the pain was asking me to give my body some more rest that I needed. Right. And then I just went to bed at 8 in the evening, which I usually don't do. And then I got a good night's sleep, and then that helped. So, it's pain is so intelligent. The body's so intelligent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to see you again because you're going to join us on another show to share some of your professional tools and techniques which you use with your clients to give somebody a bit extra, a bit of something else that will help them from a yoga perspective, perhaps, or something else that you can provide. So we'll look forward to seeing you again on the show. But thanks. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been, I think, a very informative and a very useful show for people who are dealing with chronic pain. So
thank you for having me. Thank you.
Have a great day. What's left of it?
You too.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
All right.